Hello, welcome back to Bet Builders on Free Super Tips. I'm Statman Dave and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Rory Jennings. Rory, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about game week 17 in the Premier League. First up, Rory, one word to describe Chelsea's season. Go.
Lackluster.
Brilliant word, lackluster. Excellent analysis there from Rory. If you want to check out any more analysis and more bets, go on to freesupertips.com to go and check out all the bets and suggestions they've got for this game week. Anyway, let's have a look at the winners. So we had 5 winners last time out, once again massively performing. I picked up a little W in the Leeds versus Burnley game. James Lawrence Alcott also picked up a winner, which was a big surprise to everybody here. Fulham versus Southampton, and then FST once again with the hat-trick. Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. We have Man City, Newcastle, and a big winner in West Ham, Brighton. But anyway, it's time to talk bets. First up, we've got the David Moyes derby as West Ham United travel to Merseyside to face Everton. Everton, of course, didn't have a game last time out. The game with Man City was, of course, postponed. Whereas West Ham got quite a good result against Southampton, a 0-0 draw, keeping that momentum going.
Yeah, West Ham have been very impressive. It's very difficult to predict what way it's going to go for them, but I'm inclined to think they could get something in this game.
It's a big one. Obviously, Carlo Ancelotti, Everton manager, he's had injuries this season. I think he's been a little bit unlucky with that. But overall for Everton, I think he's doing a good job.
Doing a fantastic job. I mean, it's certainly punching above their weight. It's not what we expected to see. But yeah, this one's tricky to call. This will be a tough one for Ancelotti. Very different styles of management, aren't they?
For sure. David Moyes has been defending and playing on the counter-attack. Of course, Everton need the ball a bit more. Their 4 centre-backs are doing well. But anyway, Rory, it's time to take a look at your bet for this first game. Let's dive into that straight away. So, Rory, let's take a look at your bet. You've gone with the draw, both teams to score. Quite a defensive bet, Rory, but I do quite like it.
Yeah, I can see this one coming in. I think that both teams have it in them to concede. But I don't think either team will have enough to get it over the line. So I think a draw with both teams to score is fairly safe.
We've seen quite a few results between, sides that are in that mid-table kind of position. Of course, Everton at the moment are, closest to the top of the league, but the likes of Everton versus a Burnley or a Brighton or West Ham versus Southampton, the draw looks like quite a competent result at the moment. I think both teams could, they'll have their sort of spells of dominance and so forth. Let's move on to my bet. I've got something quite similar, Rory. So you're doing okay in a way. We've got an Everton draw double chance, Souček anytime and a Michael Keane anytime. The reason why I've gone with these 2 players, set pieces.
Okay.
So Everton and West Ham United have both scored 6 goals from set pieces in the Premier League this season, the joint best record of any team. And these 2 players, big threats from those situations. What do you make of my bet, Rory?
I think it's good. I like it. This feels the most likely outcome. Yeah, it's just decent. Good price as well.
Very good price at 33-1. Of course, we've got 2 unusual goal scorers, even though Thomas Souček is West Ham United's top scorer. I'm just thinking a threat from set piece. Maybe Yari Mina, if not Keane. But anyway, let's take a look at FST's bet as well and see how they've built there. They've gone Everton to win the game. Both teams to score. Getting on that as well, Rory. Think there's going to be goals in this game. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin any time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been magnificent, hasn't he? Real player, leads the line brilliantly. Such a threat physically and in the air. Yeah, again, I think this is a positive one.
I think with Richarlison coming back into the team as well after the concussion that he was ruled out in the last game, could be assisting Calvert-Lewin to grab the winner. Now on to Manchester United versus Aston Villa. Last time the sides met Old Trafford, it was the Jack Grealish show. He scored an unbelievable goal that opened the scoring for the game. Do you think Manchester United still need someone like Jack Grealish in their side?
I think every club in the world needs someone like Jack Grealish in their side, but United certainly do. Jack Grealish to me feels like a very Manchester United player. I think under previous managers, previous eras, Jack Grealish would have signed for Manchester United already. I think he's a dazzling football player. We saw how good he was against Chelsea. He's going to be a threat to United in this game.
He really is. It's kind of that open play, the little bit of magic, a little bit of skill. And the goal, after he took that goal, a bit of a knee slide, it just looked like he'd suited like he was playing on a pitch like Old Trafford. It kind of just felt right in a way. But of course, he does still play for Aston Villa. They've got one of the best defensive records in the league. They've kept 8 clean sheets. And only Manchester City have conceded fewer goals. Defensively, they've been good this year.
John Terry.
The sole reason why Villa are decent. John Terry.
If you've got the Premier League's best ever defender at your club, chances are you're going to have a decent defence.
Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. Anyway, it's a conversation for another time. But Villa are currently sitting above 4 of the traditional big 6 in the Premier League. That, of course, is Chelsea, Spurs, Man City and Arsenal. But finally, before we dive into the bets, Bruno Fernandes.
Oh, mate, we run out of words to say about this guy. You run out of superlatives. Such a good player, driving force of Manchester United. And I can't think of a player who's come into a club from abroad to have had an impact like that.
It's unparalleled. It's unmatched.
I mean, the only thing you can think of, really, for a player coming in and helping to rise the tide at a club is when Cantona went from Leeds to United. But I don't think, obviously, that's not from a different country. I'd run out of superlatives. He's such a good player.
The crazy stat that I found this week, many stats with Bruno Fernandes, but he's been directly involved in 17 of United's 31 goals.
He's amazing. Do you know what? I put something out on Twitter fairly recently where I said he was a better player than Kevin De Bruyne. At the moment, I'd rather Bruno Fernandes as a Chelsea player than I would De Bruyne. And I got so much stick for that. And I don't even think it's that controversial.
Nope.
I think he is a better player than De Bruyne.
He's definitely closed the gap, for sure. For a central midfielder, for a creative midfielder to be in there. It was De Bruyne on his own. Now I think it is Bruno and De Bruyne. And I'd say Bruno this season, by far, on top. But anyway, Rory, let's stop talking about Kevin De Bruyne and Manchester City, because they've been a bit naughty lately. Let's talk about Manchester United versus Aston Villa. And just tell me how many goals Aston Villa are going to score in this game that you've predicted them to win with John McGinn any time.
I think they can win this game. In terms of how many goals, I'm not sure. I think they could score a few. They were so ambitious against Chelsea. John McGinn was amazing. Totally boss of midfield. He made N'Golo Kante look average, which is so difficult to do. He was unlucky not to score in that game. He rocked the bar with a beautiful strike. And I think he can definitely score at Old Trafford. And I think Villa can win this game.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Rory, with my bet.
I thought you might.
It's just one of these things. I'm going to go Manchester United, draw, double chance, Rashford any time. I do think Villa are a good side. That's why I've got the draw in there. I think United have shown in recent weeks that they can go for it, they can score through goals, but they're still a bit open defensively. So I think a United draw, double chance, nice. Taking their sort of the Premier League results in December, played 6, won 4, drawn 2. Got a pretty decent record in December. But Marcus Rashford is a man in form. No Premier League players scored more goals in the month of December. But also under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 62 games played, 31 goals. Did I do that again? But also Marcus Rashford under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 62 starts, 31 goals and 12 assists. He's just a man in form at the moment.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player and he's scoring big goals, winners. It counts for everything. Scoring late as well, which I'm going to say, it's a form of champions.
Rory, I didn't want to get onto this discussion, so we'll have to leave it for next week. But Marcus Rashford scored 3 goals after 90 minutes in the Premier League this season, more than any other player, which is a pretty decent record, as you're saying, coming up clutch. Let's take a look at FST's bet for this game. I reckon they're going to go Manchester United. They are not over 2.5 goals. Interesting, after we did the defensive stats for Villa. So goals in the game and Fernandes anytime. You just can't argue with that one, can you?
No, it's a solid bet, especially this one.
Next up, we've got Spurs versus Leeds United, Rory's 2 favourite teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's true. This is a very tricky one for me. I have to say I've been very impressed with Leeds. I've given them a lot of stick. I thought against Manchester United, I thought they got it wrong.
Yeah.
And I flagged that. I didn't quite understand how Bielsa got so much praise despite conceding 6, etc. But look, that result against West Brom, it was kind of pragmatism versus ambition, and ambition won. Very impressive.
But then you look at the Brighton game as well, not the Brighton game, sorry. And if you look at the Burnley game as well, that was a game where you could see Sean Dyche doing a classic long ball football tactic against them. They dominated that game as well. I think they're just a breath of fresh air. You look at some of the stats, they've been involved in more goals in matches than any other side in Europe's top 5 leagues. They're just a team to watch. Only 3 teams in the Premier League have scored more goals, but only 1 team have conceded more goals. So you're always going to get fireworks. So it's basically every time Leeds are on the telly, just put it on.
Put it on, you'll have a great time.
You'll have a great time. But Spurs are a very different proposition than they were when they were flying in form right now. It's the Jose Mourinho factor, the fear coming into the side.
I don't necessarily agree with that assessment. I think they've been fairly uninspiring. I think they're trying to bore their way to victory.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to do it.
Have you backed them in this game, though? Your 2 favourite clubs. You can't really back either of these teams, Rory. So you've gone with a draw under 3 goals in the game. Sensational, Rory. Talk me through it.
Well, look, I think that both teams are fairly decent. And I also think both teams will take a point. I think a point is fairly good for both teams at the moment, where they are with their relative aspirations. Mourinho's side, they don't score a lot, they don't concede a lot, so that makes sense to me. And I don't think either team will have enough to get past the other team, so I've gone for a draw.
Interesting. I've come to flipped it on that. I'm going to go with a Spurs win. I just think that this is going to be a disgusting game, like you sort of mentioned there, low scorer. But I do think Spurs have probably got enough. We saw, as you mentioned, Manchester United kind of open Leeds up on the counter-attack. Heung-min Son's a perfect player to play against Leeds. He's very direct, pacing behind, can run at you, can take you on. You take it in December as well. He scored 2 goals and got 2 assists. He's reasonably in form, and I just think the style for Spurs, as much as I want Leeds United and Bielsa to absolutely destroy Mourinho, that would be great. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do think both teams will score. I think Leeds have got a goal in them. They even showed, being 4-0 down against Manchester United, that they're still going to attack with intent.
Yeah, I mean, they're so good for a goal, and also somebody who surprised me on that front, I think Bamford's looked very lively, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been really good. You're looking at his XG in the league, he tops it. He's only behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but he misses chances.
Yeah.
He does miss big chances, but it's kind of, I don't really mind that as a forward because he's still getting into the areas. He's still linking. 2 assists against West Brom. The link-up play there was sensational. He is always going to work hard. He's just a very nice centre forward, but will miss chances that you'd expect him to
If you
score.
don't mind players who miss chances, I bet you love Timo Werner.
I bloody love Timo Werner, but we'll talk about Timo a little bit later on. Let's take a look at FST's bet for this game as well. They're going Spurs to win the game over 3.5 goals and Son anytime. So this is our game to watch for this weekend. Staying in London, it's Crystal Palace up against Sheffield United. Wilfried Zaha, should he stay or should he go?
I think he should stay. I think every time we discuss him leaving, it seems to really affect his form. He didn't have a particularly good season last year, and that came off the back of a summer where Arsenal was constantly on his case. That move didn't happen. I think it affected his form, but he seems very settled at Palace, playing very well, scores goals. I rate him, but I think he's Palace level.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment. I think this season, as you mentioned, 8 goals, 2 assists. That's 10 direct involvements. That's half of Palace's goals. He's had a big impact, and I just think the worst thing for him right now is to be destabilised in January. For his career, for his form, it will happen. There'll be links. There'll be links with AC Milan, Dortmund's, Arsenal's again. It's all going to come back. But let's take a look at the bet straight away. Let's dive in there and see what you've gone with, Rory. You've gone Sheffield United to win the game.
Well, I think it's got to
happen. They've got 2 points in the Premier League.
That's the point, though. That's exactly the point.
Basically saying it's going to happen.
It's got to happen. They're going to win a game at some point. This is the kind of game they can win. I don't really rate Roy Hodgson particularly highly. I think this is the type of match that they can win. And also, if they don't win it, I mean, they're basically down already, right? But if they don't beat Palace, then they are down. So they have to win, and therefore, law of averages, they're going to win this game.
11-4, I expected that to be 16-1. But anyway, let's jump onto my bet. I've gone for a little bit more of a realistic bet.
That was realistic.
In terms of Palace winning the game at under 2.5 goals, I think it's going to be an absolute stinker. Benteke's back for them. It's looking quite good. Bit of a relationship with Wilfried Zaha.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is so uninspiring, isn't it? Maybe Benteke. But yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to FST's bet because this is a game to not spend a lot of time on. They've gone for a draw under 2.5 goals in the game, so that's 2 under 2.5 goals. We've gone with a draw. We've got a Sheffield United win, and we've of course got a Palace win. So we're going to win at some point today, Rory. To the south coast for Brighton versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. A bit of a clash of styles, that possession style, the lack of cutting edge versus a counter-attacking team that kind of got a bit of a cutting edge in the final third.
Mate, I think Wolves are brilliant. I think people don't quite ignore, because their position in the table isn't especially invigorating. People kind of knock them, but you've got to remember that all of their big goals came from the likes of Jota, Jimenez. They're not there, and they've actually managed to replace them. That Podence is quality, absolute quality. Neto's looking good. I think that their position in the league doesn't necessarily tell the story of how good they've been. Yeah,
there was times against Manchester United where we worked a really good opportunity to get the ball in the box, and they looked up and it was little Daniel Podence running in there. And I think obviously Raul Jimenez is a massive miss.
Yeah.
Fabio Silva's looked good at times when he's coming in, but he's not the same type of forward you can sling crosses into the box, more of a sharp forward near post run. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for Wolves to get adjusted with this sort of new setup without Raul Jimenez, which is obviously quite sad. But anyway, let's move on to the bet straight away. Rory, who are you going with here? You're going with Brighton. You're just going to go over 3 goals in the game.
It's got, I think, loads of goals in this game.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I think Brighton seem to get a lot of plaudits, and I'm quite impressed with the way they play. I think Potter's a very good manager. They can't get any points. Like, I kind of run out of steam when you talk about how good a side is, when they're not putting anything on the board. Exactly.
It's a fair criticism of them because I do like the style, but they don't create enough good quality chances. No, you're simply not going to win games.
You're not. Well, also, I rate Potter, but I thought he really got it wrong against Arsenal because they seem to play they seem to rest all of their strikers. They have 4 strikers on the bench, none on the pitch. It's a weird decision. So I think that this could be.
Where it actually opens up, maybe Wolves on the counter-attack. I'm very much going to be backing Wolves in this game. I think they've been very decent this season. Again, I think they're in a bit of a false position in the league. You like Podence, I like little Pedro Neto.
Good, isn't he?
What a goal he scored against Chelsea. But you're looking at his record this season, has been directly involved in 7 goals.
We need to flag that he's a cheat.
Rory, we're flagging the statistics. I have to do it again. He's scored or assisted 7 goals in 15 Premier League games. That's more than he managed in 29 appearances, last term. So there's improvement. He may be a cheat, Rory, but he scores goals.
Agreed.
Let's take a look at free super tips bet for this game as well. They've gone Wolves draw double chance. I quite like that. And most goals in the second half. It feels like both Wolves and Brighton scored in the second half. I think Wolves have got one of the worst records in the first half, suggesting goals will come in the second half for them. Pretty decent little bet. I think that will be decent to wrap up this fixture. Next up, I can't believe I'm saying this, resurgent Arsenal. They've won back-to-back games in the Premier League for the first time since September.
Really? I know. Chelsea have galvanised Arsenal. So depressing. Yeah, that result against Chelsea is gonna invigorate them for the whole season.
I think it really could, but you look at likes of Saka, Emile Rose-Smith, Martinelli playing behind a centre forward. They look good. It's that youth, it's that energy that Arsenal just didn't have.
I think they've looked brilliant. And you know what? There was a moment in that game against Brighton where Martinelli was really pressing from the front, really chasing, trying to harry the Brighton defence. Aubameyang didn't go with him, and Martinelli had a pop at his captain.
Good.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think that players like that will now elevate this club.
I completely agree. I think you've got to trust in youth sometimes. You're thinking, do you drop Aubameyang? First half against Brighton, 6 passes completed, 0 dribbles attempted, 0 chances created, 0 shots.
Oh, Dave, that's terrible, man. When you read it out like that.
Pretty stinky horrific. First half. But I think one guy that Arsenal could play up front, own goal. 25% of the goals that West Brom have scored in the Premier League this season have been own goals.
Yeah, they do love an own goal, actually. We got one the other night, a brilliant one.
Fantastic.
That was a finish. That was up there with Lee Dixon.
Really good goal. But anyway, let's dive into the bet. So you're back an own goal to score in this game, Rory. Wow. So you're thinking Big Sam pulls the lads together.
I am. That's exactly what I'm thinking, because I think that this run for Arsenal, I think it's potentially something that is now going to continue, or it's all smoke and mirrors and they'll be back to square one. If West Brom win, it will be tight, and I rate Allardyce highly. Allardyce versus Arteta, my money's on Allardyce.
That's very interesting, Rory, because I reckon you would have backed Allardyce against our friend Marcel Bielsa, and he gave him an absolute spanking, didn't he? So let's move on to my bet. I am going for Arsenal. I think this run's going to continue. I like the spark, I like the creativity, I like the looking at Saka at the moment on that right-hand side. Got Arsenal to win, but under 2.5 goals. I think that classic 1-0 to the Arsenal has returned. Their style is quite slow still in terms of the possession play and so forth, but it leads to them only having low scoring games. So that's why I've gone with that bet. Let's move on to FST's bet for this game as well. They've gone West Brom draw double chance. Both teams to score. Yes. FST, not really an Arsenal fan at the moment.
No, I like that bet.
Burnley are back. Want to read the results? Recent results.
Go on, tell me.
1-1 with Everton. Beat Arsenal 1-0. 0-0 with Villa. 2-1 against Wolves. Lost to Leeds 1-0 and beat Sheffield United 1-0. 11 points in their last 6 games. 5 goals scored as well.
Very impressive. Dyche is great, isn't he?
He's a good manager.
When will people start putting the respect on his name that he deserves? When will it happen?
I think it's happened, but I think people have now underrated him again because Burnley traditionally start slowly in season. They just they slowly get into the Burnley form, and that is a Burnley form. Winning games, drawing games, losing games by a single goal. They're tight games, they're effective, and so forth. They're facing Fulham, of course, who have been a little bit more resurgent in recent weeks, but I think this is a big game. I think if Burnley win this, I'd say they're completely safe in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think that anyway, I think that they have enough in the locker to keep them in the Premier League. Let's
jump into your bet, Rory. You're backing Burnley in this game. You're not. Fulham, and correct score 2-1.
I've gone for, I think it will be tight. But I think that Scott Parker's good. And if Fulham are to survive, if they are, this is the kind of game where they have to get a result.
They need to. It's one of these things, though, I think, away at Turf Moor, horrible place to play. Congested. If Fulham try and play out from the back, Burnley can nick it, instantly counter. And that's why I'm backing Burnley. I think this is just a game for Burnley. This is a big bully. They're going to bully them physically. And I think Chris Wood, who's had a very, very good December, he's got the highest XG of any Premier League player in December, but has only scored 1 goal. Again, going to that fact that he probably should be scoring more and doing better with his chances. I think this is the type of game where he's up against some centre-halves that he could just absolutely bully. Thinking Anderson at the back for Fulham, I think there's a simple winner there. Let's move on to free super tips. Bet builder for this game. They've gone Burnley draw, double chance and under 2.5 goals. So not a classic.
No.
Next up, Newcastle versus Leicester City. Rory, Steve Bruce, talk to me.
Look, I have to take what fans say about their clubs as gospel.
Yeah.
And they're not happy. Geordies are generally not happy. They put all of their hopes on one player, which is Wilson up front. But from the outside looking in, it doesn't look to me like he's doing an especially bad job.
I just think Newcastle traditionally, we're talking like 20 years ago,
the entertainers and all that.
Yeah, but then that was a long time ago. Maybe they need to redefine themselves, but I can understand why.
Yeah, look, Steve Bruce, he's been brought in with a remit to make sure that club stay in the Premier League. He is going to achieve his goal. I'm convinced nobody's discussing Newcastle as potential relegation fodder. No. So with that in mind, it's a success on a very limited term at least.
Maybe the aspirations of the club is what has to change. But anyway, Rory, let's jump into the bet straight away. What have you gone with in this game? You've gone with a draw.
Yeah, I think a draw would be a very good result for Newcastle. I think every time Leicester look like they're doing something very impressive, they seem to get checked.
I know what you're saying here.
And I think this could be one where the expectations on Leicester are just put back into perspective.
Newcastle as well are that team that do that. They did that with Everton. They beat Everton 2-0, didn't they?
And they took points off Tottenham.
So this is quite an interesting game because I've actually gone with Leicester City. I'm kind of thinking now I should have gone with Newcastle.
Should have followed the oracle.
Should have followed the man. But I've gone Leicester City to win Vardy anytime. Vardy, 3 goals and 2 assists in December.
This I love, by the way.
He looks in form again, doesn't he?
He's the boy.
He looks in form. He had a bit of a rest last time out as well. So it just feels like this game is a really hard one to call. I could see it going either way. I could see it being a draw. But let's take a look at free super tips because we've got the draw. We've got Leicester to win. They've gone Leicester to win as well. Over 2.5 goals on Vardy anytime. So
everyone loves him, man. Everybody.
It's a simple winner, isn't it? Yeah. With James Maddison back as well, looking fresh in form. Could be a result for Leicester City.
Potentially.
On to Chelsea versus Manchester City. We're not quite sure whether this game is going to go ahead at the time of recording, but we've got to talk Chelsea with you, Rory, because you're a big Chelsea fan. Fran Lampard, what's going wrong and what does he need to change?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's not been a good month at all. What he needs to change is, I feel like Lampard has been fairly unlucky because the players that we've brought in to take us from kind of young pretenders to title contenders, which rhymes, right? The players that we've brought in to do that, the likes of Havertz, the likes of Timo Werner, aren't performing. So it's very difficult for Frank Lampard because he's given Timo Werner the opportunity to score goals. Nobody's played more minutes for Timo Werner. I know that some of those minutes haven't been in his favourable position. But if those players aren't going to do what they've been brought in to do, it kind of nullifies anything he can do in the boardroom. I
think it's the use of the players that I find a bit concerning because I've watched a lot of both players. First up, Kai Havertz. He isn't a central midfielder. He never has been a central midfielder. He's an attacking player. He's a goal scorer. So you have to play him in one of the forward positions. Either as a goal scorer number 10, either as a centre forward or on the right hand side.
Yeah,
I feel that Chelsea are demanding more from him. He's playing in that slightly deeper position in central midfield. It just feels like the game's ahead of him. He's a player that likes the game kind of ball into feet on the last line.
But you see, this is the problem because we went into a massive match against Arsenal, and no Chelsea fan, nobody who's watched Chelsea this season would say that Kai Havertz should start that game. Yeah. So our 2 big money signings, one of them was hauled off at half time because he was so poor and the other one was on the bench. So effectively, the 2 players that have been brought in to take us to the next level aren't doing it. So we're kind of at the level that we once were.
And as well, I think the big thing is that you have not mentioned Hakim Ziyech.
That's the injury,
he's
man.
so good. And when he's playing for Chelsea, Chelsea look like a footballing team. When he's not playing for Chelsea, Chelsea look devoid of ideas.
Totally. And what it does, you see, if you have him on one wing and Pulisic on the other, what it means that there's more room for Pulisic as well, because at the moment you can kind of overload and defend Pulisic, whereas if you've got Ziyech over there as well, it means that they, as a defensive unit, you don't really know what wings cover because they're both equally threatening.
I think there's a lot more interchanging positions as well.
Exactly.
We see Ziyech picking the ball up in central midfield, deep, and I think this is a big thing that a little bit like Villa, how Villa are kind of really geared on Jack Grealish. Like Jack Grealish just runs the show there. I think that we haven't really seen enough of Lampard's Chelsea with Ziyech in the side to really judge them. But I think with him in there, it changed everything. It allows the likes of Werner to play maybe a little bit more centrally. It allows, like you're saying, Pulisic to be in there. It allows Kai Havertz to maybe just play as a goal scorer like he's previously done in his career. It just seems a little bit more at the moment that it's Chelsea get the ball wide to fullbacks and then cross it.
Yes, and obviously what's happened is as well, Olivier Giroud isn't meant to be our striker, but he's made himself undroppable.
Yeah.
He's 4 goals away at Seville. He's become an elite level player. Everybody else who's had to go in that position hasn't done that. So we've had to kind of remodel our game to favour Giroud, whereas we're meant to be kind of playing through the middle. We've got the players to play through the middle, but a striker who wants it crossed in. It's a mess.
Absolute mess. Chelsea have won 7 of their 16 Premier League games this season. 5 draws and 4 defeats in there as well. More transfers?
Maybe.
Maybe some more money to spend. Talking about spenders, Man City, are you backing them in this game against Chelsea?
No.
So Rory, you've got Chelsea to win the game and both teams to score at 4-1.
We've got a very good record against City. We beat them last year in this corresponding fixture. I don't rate them at the moment. I don't think Guardiola's doing an especially good job. I think they're vulnerable. And I think that Chelsea can certainly win this match.
I think they're definitely vulnerable. Chelsea feel very Jekyll and Hyde this season, where you don't really know which Chelsea team's going to come out and compete. In the bigger games, bar the Arsenal result, they have been competitive.
Absolutely.
And I think with this City team, there is definitely space to counter-attack. But I've backed Manchester City to win this game 2-0.
Oh.
Sterling to score any time.
Oh. That's aggressive.
Very, very aggressive. Sterling likes playing Chelsea. He's got a good record against Chelsea in the Premier League. I just feel like this City team is going to snore this game out. This is going to be like a 1-0, they'll grab a late goal 2-0, and they'll just control the game.
Sadly, I can see this potentially coming true. If the wrong Chelsea turn up, this could definitely be accurate.
Let's take a look at free Super 6 bet for this game as well. The big game in the Premier League on Chelsea, draw, double chance, and Olivier Giroud. Anytime, your man, Rory.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that side of the bet. Can definitely see that coming in.
And our final game of the weekend sees Southampton play Liverpool at St Mary's. Liverpool have had an interesting few weeks. You're talking at draws with the likes of West Brom, Fulham, Brighton in the last 6. Are injuries finally catching up with Jurgen Klopp?
I mean, potentially, but in all of those games it could have been a slightly different story. And when it's really mattered, Liverpool have shone. So I'm inclined to see Liverpool winning this game fairly convincingly.
It was an interesting. I think the West Brom game was the interesting one because they started so fast and they looked like they could have scored 3 in the opening 10-15 minutes, and then just started getting slow, turgid. Allardyce got the ball.
Allardyced.
Yeah, they basically got Allardyced. Yeah. Obviously, Allardyce has got a pretty good record against Jurgen Klopp. But looking at Southampton, Ralph Hasenhüttl, it's going to be an aggressive game. It's going to be a pressing game. It's going to be high lines, and I think that means Liverpool are going to pick up the win. Rory, what have you gone with your bet?
I think that they'll bounce back.
Bounce back ability with a 4-0 correct score.
Do you know what they did to Palace? The last time people were asking questions about Liverpool off the back of that, I think they played Tottenham. They got quite lucky against Tottenham, and everybody said maybe this Liverpool team don't have the minerals for the league, and they went shut up 7-0. They're now going to do it again.
Shut up 7-0.
Yeah, they're going to do it again, and they're going to go shut up 4-0.
Shut up 4-0 sorted. Well, my bet's a bit different. 25-1 is a big price there. I've gone with Liverpool to win. I think they're going to do the shut up Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, I mean, he's elite, isn't he?
He is really elite. He's, again, joint top scorer in December with Marcus Rashford, or Sir Marcus Rashford, as we should really refer to him as. I just feel like Liverpool, high line with Southampton, there'll be space to get in behind the defence. I think it's going to be a real good game, but I do think Salah, Liverpool to win. Let's take a look at free Super Tips bet builder for this game. They've gone Southampton, draw, double chance, both teams to score, yes. Salah any time.
Slightly less ambitious. That's interesting.
Well, there you have it. We have built some bets on Bet Builders on free Super Tips. Rory, thank you for stopping by. Of course, if you want to follow any of our bets, please gamble responsibly. Rory, where can the good people at home find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is called Rory Jennings, which is my name.
Beautiful. We'll be back next week to build some more bets.